give you the formula for the difference quotient. So the difference quotient is f of x plus h minus f of x over h. So what's really happening is saying, when we had x2 in here and this was x1, saying this is your original one and this is your original one plus another distance to the right. So if this is x1 plus something more, the distance from here going to the right, it gets you to x2. And then the distance is from how far from here to here did we travel, which is really x2 minus x1. So from left to right, what's the difference between my two x values? And that'll be h. And then if I start at one x value and I add something to it, I'm at my second x value. So this is just another way of writing the average rate of change, but it's a formal definition, and it's called the difference quotient. So let's do an example using the difference quotient. So we're given f of x equals 2x squared plus 1. Now we don't have an interval because the difference quotient applies to the function, and that's why it's generalized. So it's from any x to the next x. And it depends on what your h value is. Are you going to go from x equals 1 to x equals 2, or are you going to go from x equals 1 to x equals 10? And that's how the h changes. Your h would be 10. It would be however much you changed. So my formula is f of x plus h minus f of x over h. So we're just going to leave the h's in place when we do this work. So now if I want to find f of x plus h, we'll do it in steps, but in the end you're going to have to write it together. So for the first time through, we'll do it in steps. So let's find f of x plus h first. So I have to plug x plus h into my function. So f of x plus h equals 2, parenthesis, I'm going to use like a filler. So wherever I see an x, I have to put in x plus h, and it's still squared plus 1. So that's f of x plus h. And we can simplify that, and we're going to have to expand our binomial or use FOIL. Okay, I apologize for the video quality because the kids are getting crazy in the background. So hopefully you can still see what I'm writing. So if I just do f of x plus h first, I want to remind you that when you square a binomial, you have to FOIL. So you can't distribute it. You got to do it order of operations. You got to do what's in the parentheses and then exponents before you multiply. So I'm going to have 2 times, I have to FOIL this. So this is x plus h times x plus h. That's another way of writing it, if that helps you remember. So I still have my 2. I should have an equal sign here. So I'm going to do x times x, which is x squared. And then I'm going to do x times h. So add xh. Then I'm going to do h times x. So add xh and h times h, which is h squared. I still have plus 1. Now I can distribute my 2. So this is 2x squared plus, this is 2xh, and that's another 2. So that's 4xh plus 2h squared plus 1. So that's all f of x plus h. We also need to know what f of x is, but f of x is just our original here because we're going to subtract f of x. So if I was going to write this whole thing out, we would start here. So we would say f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. And I would write that as 2 times x plus h squared plus 1 minus, and I would recommend putting it in parentheses because you got to make sure that you're subtracting the whole thing. So I'm going to change colors. 2x squared plus 1 all over h. So now we already simplified this part, which is f of x plus h right here. So this is going to be 2x squared plus 4xh plus 2h squared plus 1 minus 2x squared minus 1. I have to distribute that negative. All over h. Scooch it up so you can still see. So we can simplify, and the 2x squareds cross out. So this 2x squared and this 2x squared crosses out. The 1 and the 1 crosses out. So I am left with 4xh and 2h squared. 4xh and get some paper under here. 4xh and 2h squared all over h. So I can, in the numerator, I have two h's up here. I have an h in the numerator and an h in the numerator. So I could rewrite that as h times 4x plus 2 all over h. The reason I rewrote it was to show you that you can't just cross stuff off when there's a plus sign in the middle. But because I factored out an h and an h is being multiplied, now I can cross it off. So my final answer, my difference quotient is 4x plus 2. Oh, it was h squared. I should still have an h here. 2h. 4x plus 2h. So if you go back, it's h squared. If I factor out 1h, I've got 2h in there. 4x plus 2h. That's my difference quotient. And the only thing that I didn't mention was that when you're using the difference quotient, h can't be 0. The reason is because you don't want to have a 0 in the denominator because it's undefined. The other reason is if you go back to the picture, if h is 0, from here to here I didn't move, I'm just at that point, so you're not going to be able to find the slope of a point. So it's for two reasons. If you just look at it algebraically, you can't have a 0 in the denominator. If you look at it graphically, you're not going to want to find the difference quotient because you don't have a difference, you're staying at the same place. H is telling you how much you're going to change. Okay, example 2. I would ask you to pause the video. I'm going to do the work while you're paused, and then I'm going to restart the video and show you all of my work on the paper. You can check yours. Okay, so I've written down all my work. Hopefully you've tried the problem. So you set it up, f of x plus h minus f of x over h. Plug it in. Make sure that you subtract the whole f of x, so x squared minus x. And then I expanded. I FOILed x plus h to get x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. And then I distributed my negative to the negative x, negative h right here. And then I also distributed this negative, so I got negative x squared plus x. And then I crossed off in orange the terms that cross each other off, the x squared and the negative x squared, the negative x and the x. And I circled what I saw left in the 2xh, h squared, and minus h. I had an h, so I was going to factor that out. So I circled those h's, factored my h out here. So h out of 2xh is just 2x, h out of h squared is positive h, and h out of negative h is negative 1. That allowed me to cross off at h from the numerator and the denominator. I'm left with 2x plus h minus 1, where h doesn't equal 0. That is my difference quotient. So take a look at that if you didn't get the same thing or you got stuck along the way.